I was going to just say a few things about our wine style in general before I invite you to try these three wines. And I guess, as has been alluded to a little bit in the vineyard, we've always been about a regional blend, and we've always been focused on producing just one wine. So we don't get distracted by making a lot of different parcels of wine. We really focus on Nautilus Sauvignon Blanc as being the premium product that we put out. The Awatere has always been a part of our blend. You saw the vineyard there in the show, and we were getting Awatere fruit back in the early 90s. We were amongst the first to get Awatere fruit. We've always felt that's been important to us as well. So we now source fruit from 10 different vineyards, 10 different individual vineyards, 5 of them are contract growers, and those growers have been working with us for a long time, so it's very much a business partnership. We're working to achieve the same sort of goals. They're professional grape growers. That's what they do to earn a crust. They're not accountants that have a vineyard that they do in the weekends. And those 5 growers, the youngest one we've been dealing with since 2000, so we've still got a minimum of 10 years history with those people. And at that same time, we now also have the 5 sites that we described in the video as well. And that's been a case of we've taken opportunities to invest where we see a parcel of land that we think is going to add something to our blend, give us a component that we perhaps haven't had before. And it's all to do with building up these layers in the wine. So really the aim with those 10 individual vineyards is to try and capture everything that Marlborough's got to offer. So yes, we want some of the ripe tropical characters and passion fruit, which we typically get from the north side of the valley. We also want some of the gooseberry and the capsicum, which we typically get from the south side of the valley. We want some of the tomato leaf, the basil, and the fragrance that you get from the Awatere. And each of those individual components are very important, and it's actually only when you start blending them all together that you end up with a complete package. And the concept's the same with any blended wine. The sum is supposed to be greater than the individual parts. And you take the positive attributes from these individual components, but when you actually blend them together, you end up with a complete package. And that's where it's really important. So, often with Sauvignon Blanc, you get style or substance. Rarely do you get both. So if you have a lot of punchy upfront fragrance, you find you don't have much palate weight. And we've always been perhaps happy with a slightly more restrained style that doesn't show a lot of punch on the nose, but then it delivers on the palate. And that's particularly important for A, longevity, and hopefully we'll illustrate that, and B, particularly when it's partnering up to food. You need that palate weight. We think palate weight's more important than fragrance. And there's a lot of wines recently have been based on a real pungent passion fruit character, and there's been a lot of research done in determining what these compounds that contribute these flavours, and it's a group of compounds called volatile thiols. And you get this real passion fruit punch, but it's now also been proven that fades within about 18 months and it's gone. So if you haven't got something else in behind that passion fruit to back it up, then the wine that's based solely on that punchy passion fruit falls over. So you need those other components there to fill in and give the wine a bit of longevity. So we've also always said that Nautilus tastes better after Christmas than before. I've never been a fan of the Nouveau Sauvignon concept. And here we are sort of just releasing our 09 in March, and we're really comfortable with that. Right up till before Christmas, the 08 was much better drinking than the 09. And I think Sauvignon does need sort of 3 to 6 months at least just to settle down in the bottle and it'll start developing palate weight. And I guess one of my other bugbears too is we get some people, particularly in Marlborough, which is the region we come from, winemakers who say they're bored with Sauvignon Blanc. I think that's bollocks, to be honest. I get a lot of enjoyment out of making Sauvignon Blanc. It's different to making Pinot, but in reality, yes, it's a simple wine to make in the winery, but the key for Sauvignon Blanc is getting out to the vineyard and making that picking decision, deciding when to get those grapes in, and then getting them in at the time when you think the flavours are the optimum. And that's where you spend your time with Sauvignon Blanc. Once it's in the winery, yes, it's a relatively simple process. And we hear a lot of talk about wines being made in the vineyard. Well, you could argue that Sauvignon Blanc is one of the ultimate examples of that, because it's not covered up with winemaking accessories. There's a little oak that's used in it. It tends to be a question of just capturing those vineyard characters and then presenting them in the bottle. So I think that really illustrates that point very well. And we've also made a, to me, the most important parcel of wine in any vintage is the next one coming in the door. It doesn't matter what the variety is, because you can't really afford to drop the ball on any of them. And if you treat each parcel that's coming in as important as the next one, then hopefully you're going up with an overall quality of product. So we've got 3 wines in front of you that we thought we'd like you to try. And considering what we were going to present to you, we did sort of look at the 1985 and thought perhaps not. But it is there just as to prove the point, I guess. And we've got about a dozen bottles of it. I don't know that we'll open anymore, but it's there and it's part of our history, so it sits in our cellar gathering dust. We've also just got a couple of Nautilus shells there. If you haven't seen them before, that's where the inspiration for the label comes from. And certainly there's a lot of mathematical beauty about that creature and the shell that it produces that we can take some inspiration from. Sort of almost perfection in nature in terms of its the spiral that it produces. So what we did select for you was one old wine, or old ale wine, which is the 2002, and then we wanted to show how our wine ages relatively slowly. So we've got the 07 and the 08, and then we'll move on and taste the 09. So I think you've got some notes about the harvest characteristics of those wines. So I think probably the best thing now is just have a taste of them. I'll give you 5 minutes, and then I'll tell you some of my thoughts, and welcome any discussion if anybody wants to make any comment on them. But you've really got one sort of quite older, developed style, and then the other two I think still retain a lot of freshness.